Weird, dude. Very weird day. But anywho, we are Aquarius. We're gonna talk about some stuff today, and it's gonna be fun, and you're gonna love it.
We're still on live.
Yes, we're still alive. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's gonna come back. It's all gonna be great. Everybody's gonna everybody's gonna love it. We're gonna have so much fun and all that.
Wh- What are you gonna do?
I don't know.
What's your strategy? It sounds good to me. I live by the I don't know strategy.
Hmm.
And it's worked for me so far. Sort of. So my topic
Okay.
that I wanted to talk about. It's super general.
hmm
I said, what's the most efficient slave?
Efficient
Right.
slavery. This is why I didn't want to title it this way because it
Well,
sounds so
but that's
bad,
all right.
and it is kind of
Because
bad. Honestly, it's not as.
because slave has a racial connotation, and I don't know. I'm looking past that in this one. I'm looking like what. All right. So what exactly is a slave?
Hmm,
You don't get a choice, and as a slave, you
no,
don't have
no.
rights as a slave. But even as a slave, I mean, and throughout history, could you imagine having no rights? That must be what hell must be like. You literally have like no ability to like control your body or anything. You know what I mean? But I mean,
Yeah, I'm sure
you
hell
can't.
isn't
All
going to
right,
be the most fun thing ever. I don't
all right.
see that being,
Throughout history, you'll see like, that the what I guess the Jews were enslaved, right? During
I
well, I guess
I I,
a
I
couple
wonder what
different
that I
couple
wonder
different
what that was
times.
kind of called in a sense because they were kind of ruled by the Romans. So they were kind of like a I don't know if the Romans consider them like a subclass. I don't know if they
Well,
treated
that's
them the same
that's
way that most
that's
the
that's the
slavery
whole
thing is,
point
but
that I'm
maybe
getting at.
maybe they did in that sense.
That's the
Okay.
whole point that I'm getting at. I mean, it kind of became like even no different for, early America with blacks. You say that they have rights, but then all of a sudden, if some boundary gets crossed or something, you know what I mean? Like they're no different than a poor person today. That's what I'm saying, that the rights just go out the door, and the problem will solve itself one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of the point that I'm getting at. Are we're like financial slaves in a sense, that, and I know that sounds cruel, but it's like you don't have the ability to just do whatever you want because you're tied to everything's financial, everything's, in a world. You can't just buy and live in another house, or you can't just go wherever you want. You need to eat, so you can't just, take food off of anywhere you want to take it and whatnot. Everything's kind of claimed at this point for the most part, that you can't really just live for free. I mean, I'm sure some people will say you can go off the grid and whatnot, but
And I wonder
it's
about
a
that
little
too.
bit.
Like, the people that do that, I think they're really worried about our future in that sense, and I can kind of understand. I mean,
How would they even know? I mean, if you're off the grid, are you like still paying attention to? I
well, I
mean,
mean,
I know there's
you're
the
gonna have
simple off the grid.
you're
There's
gonna
like that off the
you're gonna
grid where
have
you just,
people that know and tell you about things and be like, "Oh no, it's gonna." I mean, here's the thing: the one big thing people are worried about, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, everybody's worried about it. They got to get the guns and the ammo and the food and all that." But the thing some people are saying is the most worrisome right now is the fact is, what if they just stop our money the way that we have it, take away the cash, make it all digital. Therefore, whatever you do, it's tracked, you're watched, you can only withdraw so much money at a certain particular
right. And
time.
and I
And
agree
if
with
they have
that, but
full
that's a
control over
problem.
that, they could say, um, you did wrong thing. And I'm saying some people would be like, well, that's a
Yeah.
bit out there, but you did wrong thing. So we're gonna freeze your assets because what do they do with
Well, it's
and
not
and
just
I,
that, but
and I'm not
oh,
saying it was I'm
oh,
not saying it
you
was
spent
wrong for
four
like
thousand
the
dollars. Put a police officer on that person's house because something seems to be going on. Let's see why they're why they're
and
blinging all of a
they're
sudden,
gonna
or,
know exactly what you're buying.
right?
They're gonna know
They're
exactly
paying
what you're
attention,
buying. If you don't buy the thing,
especially when you know they're working with all these other parties. But again, I
yeah,
mean, to see what I mean,
it's
how this becomes such a broad topic,
mm-hmm,
because the whole point, and you're already kind of getting into this is now.
mm-hmm.
Well, how did we get here? Is from these institutional things. They tricked us when we were kids that we thought this was what we were supposed to figure. I was telling you earlier about, and I
Oh,
don't know
hey,
all the
Carrot.
details, but just like how, Jim Henson was apparently like a CIA agent. And I think about it, it's true.
That is
All the
so
characters
strange.
in the
I've
Muppets,
that is
but
so
all the
strange.
characters in the Muppets embrace their problems. They teach you this idea of like, you should be okay with your problems. It's the other people who don't understand your problems that is the problem. They
Mm-hmm.
put this mindset into you as a child. I mean, it's like I was telling you before, the schools are set up like communistic societies where the principal is the all-powerful leader that will determine your fate. There is no judge and jury system in this school. There is a zero fighting policy. You don't have the right to protect yourself. It's zero fighting policy. You'll both be expelled. All of it's this communistic style state for these kids to grow up in. And then you wonder why they only know about the idea of communism. There's no democracy taught in schools. It's
Hmm.
all these about, like I said, with you know how I'm such a hater of Disney. No different.
You
Disney
know what?
took
I
these.
have to just pause you real fast. Just say because, especially when I was in school when I was younger, there was a principal, and this is the weirdest thing. I was in a Catholic school when I was young, and the principal wanted to come to us and tell us that we were going to talk about evolution. Even though in the classes we had when we were younger, it was just like God created us and image and likeness, we were made from mold and all that. And the principal came to us and said we had to go into evolution classes. Like, why are we learning this? If you want to teach us about evolution, doesn't that kind of like go against each other? And then my mom and I was like, what's going on here? My mom got me out of the class, but then the principal was like, well, he doesn't want to learn about the truth. He wants to be stuck in the old ages and all that. All the school kids laughed at me when I left the room to not be a part of the class. I had to go and sit in the computer room and play computer games for about an hour while they learned about evolution. And I was like, not learning about it because, it was like, well, we're in a Catholic school. We're learning about what we're growing up with. And then you're forcing us to do this. And then you laugh at me because I'm not going to learn this. My mom pulls me out of the class. It's like, what can I do? You're gonna insult on top of injury for the fact is like I'm in a Catholic school, but
I know too
we're
much
not
of
gonna
that
teach
happens too.
Catholicism to you, or
Too much
what's
of that happens.
and it was like it's like
People hate
it was
work,
a
and when somebody
dictatorship.
causes more work, it's like, oh,
But it was like a
they even.
dictatorship in a sense. It wasn't like, oh, you okay if you want to believe, if you don't, if you're not sure about what we're teaching, go ahead. But she directly insulted me and made fun of me and made me look like a
Yeah.
clown to all the kids in school, and I felt completely embarrassed after a while, and then I looked kind of stupid to them because it's like, well, he doesn't want to believe in evolution. Well, it's just because my mom didn't want me to learn. She wanted me to believe what the Bible was teaching. I mean, nowadays it's I have a different perspective on life, but it's like that. Why would you do that to a kid, especially a kid that's only in second or third grade? Make them feel. I mean, you're an
Yeah,
adult and you're
there's
gonna like attack this kid and his parents and no, 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 no. You don't. You can't have your belief in a Catholic school. Come on, what is up with that? It's like you
yeah.
can't. We're we're not in a public school where it's like we have to teach the government cheese doctrine here that you gotta, it's totally different. And then people think the private schools are so good. They have their major hiccups. This is one of those. It's like you
Yeah.
get a very a very sciency principle, and she could just turn the whole thing around. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if you had that kind of experience, but I think that's kind of baloney. It's just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would that? Why would you
For the
do that
most
to? Why
part,
would you do that to
and
a kid?
I also went to a private school up until sixth grade. In sixth grade, I went over into seventh grade. But yeah, I don't really think I had any situation like that. And I mean, we were very actually pretty strict to what the Bible said. We never learned any evolution, I don't think. You know,
I mean, sometimes I have a hard understanding of the idea because it's like okay, you can laugh at me all you want, be like, oh, well, ha ha ha, because this already happened and stuff. But I just don't understand, like, why did some monkeys evolve, but not all of them? Like, I don't
Well,
understand. Like, that's the really hard thing. Like, why do some things evolve and some don't? And why are there some things that have been prehistoric animals, like trilobites or other, maybe not trilobites, but some other things we found that never evolved? It's been like the same way for millions of years. Why is that a thing? It almost makes me think maybe the God notion was real. Maybe God did create all these things and it just individually created them when he was there. Maybe some things do slightly evolve over time, but maybe
yeah,
the
I mean,
evolution
there's no
stayed
doubt
such a
that
longer
depend
time than
the
what
food
we
and
can
terrain,
imagine. I mean, I,
food and
I
terrain will create your image. I mean, salmon are pink because of the food they eat, and chickens stopped growing wings very large because all their food was on the floor. They could just they're in an area that had so much food on the floor they didn't have to fly. So it just became easier and easier for them.
yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot.
I would say the same thing with cats too. I think the initial cats were mountain lions and something like that, and they would jump off of things and fall down very hard places. So they had to learn to land on their feet, and they just moved around. And so now cats just know how to do it, even if they don't live in that kind of terrain. I think there is a bit of evolution that does happen. I mean, but I
Yeah,
think it's
I
a
wouldn't
very
think that the
long process.
it's the same
You
as like
know,
the sharks. I wouldn't say the lion was the
you know.
thing that everything branched off to. Something became out in the lion. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
doubt that I mean
I
I
mean,
agree.
I can't
I
prove all of that, but it's just it's sometimes it's a hard concept to swallow. And maybe it's just like, ah, well, you're dumb, you didn't see all the science. Maybe
That's like I
that's the
said.
fact, but I mean, it's
Some
just
people believe that psyllobid
I
mushrooms are responsible. That for like over
and
a
that's
hundred
not
thousand
that's
years,
another thing too. I'd
as we
have to
followed and ate the psyllobid mushrooms behind the cattle,
yeah.
because that's all we would do is just follow the cattle. They knew where the food was. We'll get the secondaries.
Hmm.
If we ate these magic mushrooms and we opened up our minds to like, I
I
exist.
I would probably believe in some of that because honestly, I'm starting to believe like your health and all that's based on your gut health. What goes into your mouth is what fuels your body and all the chemicals and nutrients you need,
Yeah,
and it certainly helps grow something. There's certain superfoods that do things for you that others don't, and if you have these superfoods, it's
but
gonna
that's what I
do
mean.
more for you in a certain way. So
The
maybe
government wants
that
you
is
to become all the same. They want you to all watch the same things, think the same thoughts, eat the same thing.
maybe the evolution was through the foods that we ate, and the ones that didn't eat those foods didn't grow more intelligent wise, and the ones that did got certain
I still think that
maybe
God
some
played his role. God probably influenced certain things.
I'm a little more into that though. I know, and it
I
sounds like
mean,
it's not the
I
most
think
popular thing, but it's like I'm kind of on board with that too. Yeah.
but I think Satan did too. I think Satan took these small little lizard creatures and slowly made them into ferocious dinosaurs. And he, look at what I can do, God.
Maybe.
Like look at these amazing creatures.
Hmm.
And
Hey,
maybe it was a lot of
how's it going, Altison?
cool.
Carrot.
Either
But yeah,
way, to get back to what I was saying originally, what was I saying originally?
I was just getting on the whole idea
Okay.
that the
Well,
principal is being very, very authoritarian, even though she is the
authoritarian is
principal. She is a principal, so she has to kind of like dictate what's going on. But the fact is, I think the problem was she was trying to dictate how the classes should run. And I think the fact is the teacher should teach the class, but the principal should be making sure that if there's any
well, there should
outbursts
be
or things like that,
anything.
then
I
she
mean,
should come
I know that
in
was a
and
private
but
school, but anything
but
in
she
the
shouldn't
public
have been
schools,
interfering with that. Much
it
like
should pretty much just be a memorization game on policy than it should be, for
yeah,
the
yeah. I
public
think the
schools.
policy was a little bit off on that. I think she totally went dictatorship with her role there. She shouldn't have gone that far.
There should be
But
allowed for more private schools and the government funding for private schools. It doesn't take much for learning nowadays. You know what I mean?
hmm
I don't even understand how our society hasn't done better on making more websites for learning things and all. Everything's just like, crappy indoctrination, crappy stuff, just crappy. Like half the things, the quick hacks are like lies and stuff like that. They're not even
yeah,
true.
like Altison's making a good point here. Our free will is pointless in front of God's omniscience. Um, illusion of free will. God is omniscient. He already knew what Satan would do. I think the fact is, yeah, he had this all stuff in plan. But I think the fact is, I think what we can do is we can choose to be the good source, the light going forward, or we can
Well, it's
choose
like you said,
the other side.
but like you
We
said,
he
you know,
knows it's going to
God said,
happen, but
God says
which
you can either
place
be
are
a
we
son
going
or
to?
a servant.
Yeah,
A servant,
yeah,
that
yeah.
slave. But that's what I'm saying. What's an efficient slave? You can't just look at slavery. Get past the idea of that whole racial notation of slavery and start looking at it. What makes it? First off, a good slave won't know they're a slave. They'll think they have freedom. They'll think they have their choices. They'll think they have their, but only the freedoms that won't interfere with your. Look what
So
happened.
you're saying a
Like you
comfortable
said,
life is
right?
just
Much.
a very whoosh. I'm just doing what I'm told. I have no idea. Everything's going right over my head, and a
Look what
comfortable life
happened with
just
this
leads you
with the
into
game. I know it's so repeated, but look what happened with the GameStop stock. As soon as the freedom
yeah, yeah.
intertwined with the actual notions of things, like, well, you don't have that freedom.
Hmm.
No, 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 no. You have the freedom to do whatever you want. I don't care.
Uh,
Unless it interjects with my actual plans of things. Like
yeah.
that's not no, 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 no. That's
Hmm.
not the freedom you have anymore. So that's what I'm saying. Sure, they don't care if people kill other people. That's the freedom. Yeah, go ahead. I don't even care if murder is legal. Kill whoever you want.
Honestly, I think
That
that's
doesn't.
why most wars take place anyways. It's just so I can send out young, healthy boys to go and get murdered because in the end, does anybody really take over the territory anymore? Or do they just make a little, oh, you lost, now you got to pay this fee? What about all those people that
Look,
died on both sides?
look at China. China threatened Elon Musk, and he will pay for his basically trying to say, here's some peace negotiations, people. It's not that hard to get everything everybody wants.
Yeah, but
Russia should be allowed in NATO. I don't
I
think it's
mean,
that,
how many wars
look,
have we
if
been
Russia's not,
to that have been fully
why the
justified
hell, why the hell should Ukraine,
lately?
one of the most highest corruptive countries, be allowed in NATO and then not Russia? Because Ukraine holds governmental elections that were clearly all fraud. Your last president was in, he was corrupt. He was admitted that he was corrupt. So your idea of, oh, I hate that concept. Let's make presidential elections. Why? So you can guarantee as soon as you get your guy in, you can change the rules to however you need to win for the next 16 to 20 years while you
Hmm.
live. You don't need to have things for 100. You're not going to live for 100 more years, just long enough for you to have your comfortable life long
Hmm.
enough. That's all these people want. They're obsessed with making their own lives better. And they're trying to make this idea of like, no, you have to play by my rules. I've made the rules. It's literally a mental illness that they think they have more rules and rights than other people. It's a mental
Hmm.
illness, and I'm done parading it with these people, these uber rich people that think that they have. Bill Gates think he can buy up all this land and stuff like that. Like who? Why
That
is the
that
government even allowing that? The government should be like, nah, it seems a little monopolistic. We're gonna
Well,
go ahead and say
yeah,
no.
why
And
is
when
a
he's like, this
computer
isn't a free
developer buying
country,
farmland? Why is he trying to spout pharmaceutical ideology and medicine? Why is a mechanical engineer trying to tell you what to do with your life? Why does an astrologer know um, everything? Why does just a little girl that you know isn't much of anything except for a kid telling us what we do with our climate? Why is it all these crazy things that aren't scientists telling
look,
us how to live our life and we just go along with it?
Greta's
Why
over
do we
18 now, so I don't
what
care. But I hate when
but
they take little
why do they
kids and
take
parade them.
but why do they
Both
take this
sides are
stuff and not
guilty of
show us?
that.
Here's the
Stop,
thing.
leave the kids alone.
Why don't they show us the real science of things instead of just coming out and saying, "Ooh, this is going to happen." If you go back 70 years, it was global cooling. We had to worry about global cooling. Back in what 2010 to 20, the sea levels were supposed to be so high that everything was supposed to be flooded by now. Is it completely flooded by now? No. We had global warming. Now it's global climate change. Why is it all this stuff that isn't true, but yet we're so afraid of it? It's going to happen within 20 years. We have this all the time. We have a continual crisis that happens forever. Uh, I think there's just so many people that try to make something out to be something it's not because it sells. And
Even if
so
it
so in our
is,
own mind we become trapped and enslaved to the idea that, oh shit, I better stock up because maybe they're right. Maybe they're 20 years. Maybe they're right. So you spend half your life saving all this extra garbage that you probably might not need. It's not to say you don't need it, but I'm just saying, like, look at all the
But
hype that we
that's
get
what
led into, and it just now we're mind
this is what
slaves
but this is what
to this
everybody
fear,
does.
this fear porn that's pushed on us all the time because oh no, they know, yeah, they knew 20, 50 years ago, and nothing's really changed that much.
But this
Maybe
is what
something changed a
everything
little bit, but like, how can you prove it? How can you prove it? They're not even showing us how it's provable. They're not showing us it's provable. They're just, and even what happened with the one hurricane that happened, like, this is a sign of climate change. We haven't fucking hurricanes for centuries, for a millennia. That's just nature. That's just nature. What, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, I understand we're going to have a little bit of an impact, right? We'll have some impact. There's definitely some impact. If we threw a bunch of nuclear bombs all over the place, major impact. Massive impact. We'll go back into the ice age. Now, I don't think that's a good idea. But, it's...
That's what Putin's suggesting, though. Because I know, dude, as soon as Putin... You know what somebody said the other day that I thought was actually... I think Putin probably got a note from his doctor that he has like a cancer or something and he's going to die in like 2 years. He probably knows he's going to die soon.
I think there's somebody that's going to... There's some potential that he could get knocked out or something, but we got a remaining timer limit here, guys. If we have to pause out, we'll come back in if we have to. Okay, I'll send you back the host, and maybe that'll work there. Da da da. Yay. Okay.
Did you click on it as well?
I didn't get to click on it as fast as you came back in, but I made you the host here, so we'll see. Still has a timer for me, but...
It has the timer for you.
Yep.
Why don't...
Well, it says 40 minutes, but it says the remaining time is whatever.
Try clicking on it again, the link. Now that I'm the host.
Timer's still going down. Well, if we got a little hiccup in the system, then we'll have to
I think it's because you have to leave. I think that's the thing of it. I don't have the timer anymore.
Can I leave and come back? I don't know. Let me see about my software here, if I can do something like that. You know what? Maybe if I turn off the Zoom. I don't know if that's going to work.
Is that timer still there?
Yeah, it's still going down.
Darn. I read those instructions perfectly.
I know, it's so weird. Anyways, everybody, we're trying to figure out a little Zoom thing. That's why we stopped Zoom for a while. Although Zoom's quality is great. We just had some Zoom timer thing. I think in the next time I'm just going to get the Zoom thing just so I can keep this going.
What is the most efficient slave? They don't know they're a slave.
Let me leave and come back.
Look, you can't have a slave poor enough that it can't like. No. All right. If I were the rulers of the school, I would definitely be having like a 40-minute morning stretch program where everybody does stretches, and we need to get like, detailed stretches, not just these fake stretches. I'm talking, if you don't stretch out your muscle, it stays asleep.
It worked. Great. I left. I turned off the camera feature for the stream, left, came back, turn it on, boom, done, solved. Sorry, I'm sorry, man. I missed half of what you were saying there. I was trying to get this to work right.
Well, I was just saying, like, yeah, all right. So the most efficient slave shouldn't know they're a slave. Can't have the ability to revolt, basically. Can't
And that's another thing. That look at what we're having right now.
can't
Oh, you got to be censored. So the pretty much means that you can't go against the grain.
organize.
You can't say anything at all. You can't dissent.
All right,
You
you can't
can't.
be weak enough. You can't be weak enough that you can't get the job done, though. See, I don't mean to be this. Hitler never took his slaves and them do anything. They just like most of them were just like building their own slave camps to die. And I'm not. So it's. I mean, they weren't even
Was
really
that?
slaves.
I don't think that was
They were just.
slavery. I
They
think
were
that was
just.
just
Right.
death.
They were
That
just
was just a death
tortured. They were
camp.
just tortured victims.
That was just a torture death camp. Where were they digging fields and holes
The, the,
for?
sl- the slaves were really the people that just followed him. They
It
thought
was
that.
more of a prison actually than
Oh,
anything.
and you know what I wanted to say. While we're on the show, I thought about this today. Everybody always keeps talking about like China should take Taiwan because Taiwan used to be part of China, and Russia should have what's the island? What's the island down there again? That they should have that part because and all of Ukraine basically used to be part of Russia, right? Or at least the one island down below. Is it Crete or
Um,
whatever it was? I can't think of what the island is
I know
anymore,
I
but down
kind of
below.
forgot what that was.
Either
But
way, either way, you keep talking about, oh, we should give the Americans should give, white people anyway should give the Native Americans back their land and all that. And I was just thinking, like, you know who this reminds me of? Like Hitler when he wanted to make Germania again, like all the combinations of like different Russian or German countries that got banded because America, basically like
Mhm.
influenced the idea of like, yeah, they're a pretty large superpower.
Well, the thing is,
Break them apart.
he wanted to make the Aryan race the thing again, but it's not the Aryan race. That's just the white race. It's the original Aryan race comes from way back in the Atlantean times, all the way back. I think the Scythians were a part of it, but also, well, I don't know. Maybe they were an offshoot. But the Scythians were really
Yeah,
terrible
but
people.
that video that
Um,
Joe Rogan shows of
but
Hitler on meth is so funny. It's like it's weird to think about how the hell did people follow a guy
he,
who's clearly a he's
was
clearly
he
a
on
meth
meth, or
head.
was he just like a extremely
No,
anxious
dude,
guy?
that's meth. That is meth
Okay.
for sure. That's speed. You can
Okay.
see it. You can, and
Well,
now that I look
actually,
at him, it's like, yeah,
that would make sense because the SS troopers that they had were all high on some kind of drug. So when they went out to shoot the other forces, even if they got shot, they still had so much adrenaline they could just keep going for a while. Um, I think that's where they get
like
their
PCP
ideas.
and shit.
Yeah, whatever kind of drug they had, I don't know if it's heroin or
I, I guess I'm just saying,
what
like,
was there.
it doesn't make sense
It
to give people back the land and all that, or everybody goes back to where you were. Like none until what? You keep going further back and things will just change again. You keep going further back and things will just change more. You can't really, and we don't even know the history that accurate. It's just a stupid concept. You need to live here and now, and
I think
you
if
need
we're
to
gonna
make the
like really
changes.
get on this idea with what is the slavery issue, or are we free and all that, it really comes down to like it's just like what Jesus said. You can be a
Well,
son or a servant. It's your perspective and your outlook and how you deal with that. And
I look at
I think
America's
okay,
history and I think
maybe the way certain countries are and maybe the way we have it, it's a little bit different than that.
it's
But how we could
it's true.
how we could live is kind of up to
I mean,
us.
I mean, it's true. There's no doubt about it that America's history is basically founded through, you had to. I don't want to say necessarily genocide because a lot of tuberculosis was just a thing then. I mean, it's not.
Mm.
It's not. You can't call non-knowledge people's fault. A lot of Americans died, or white, the settlers at that time
Mm.
died as well from other diseases
Oh,
that the Indians
tuberculosis
had too.
and
But
all
I'm
kinds of
saying,
stuff. I
like,
mean, you barely lived past 40, or maybe if you got to 50, you were kind of lucky.
I mean, that was just, but that was the lifestyle that people lived back then. People didn't fear death. It was around every single thing you did. You
Hmm.
embraced it and you challenged it. And it's like with today, everybody's so just bottled up and you can't say this, you can't, it doesn't really make sense to me. Like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, what's your end
I
game
think the
by
fact is we're trying to achieve this kind of this immortality. Because I mean, look at COVID. Everybody's so worried about the 0.01% of forgetting something that could potentially be bad for you. And yeah, it could be life ending. But I mean, if it's under a 1%, it's very, very likely not going to do that. Now, yes, it affects elderly people
but
and all that, but it's like
it's
we're
not
looking for this immortality now because they're thinking, oh, we're going to go digital, we're going to
but
put
it's
our
not just
brains into
that.
the
Look
ether and the
look when there
machine.
was a
And
real plague. You still had rich people putting handkerchiefs over their mouth with flowers and stuff like that, walking out in public.
well, yeah, but
They
actually that was actually three different diseases together to make the Black Plague. Actually,
they didn't shut down the economy even. They just kept like you protected yourself however you felt was the best way to
well, the
protect
plague
yourself.
doctors had to put the herbs in their nose so they could breathe in the because they thought it was more of miasma. Essentially, is what they thought. They thought
Ring around the posies, pocket,
there was
ring
this
around the
cloud of
rose pocket full of
disease.
posies, you know.
Yeah, that was about
Ashes, they all fall down.
that was about nuclear bombing. You know, Zoom has ended. What? All right, sorry, folks. I have to pause this for a second here. I think my end went out. Yeah, we might have to change things up here in the future. Let's see here. Do do do. Yo,
Well, that's full of crap.
how did that happen? What happened?
There was, it just said my 40-minute had ended.
We we weren't that we weren't live for that long, were we?
No, yeah, probably exactly like close to 40 minutes there.
No, it just says 33 minutes right now for our our end here. What is up with that?
It must have had the original timer for me.
I think you had the original timer. All right. Well, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to get this thing in the future because I mean, I like this as far as this goes, but this is a little ridiculous just going to kind of do this. I like the Zoom thing. It's a little better quality even on Twitch. It looks a lot better. Discord is all extremely fuzz. But all right, we're back in.
Which
Anywho,
is what I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to look at it like a human slave. The devil wants slaves to this world. That's what I guess that's what I'm just trying to look at it is like we're all kind of like slaves to this world. We're not really sons of God. We're not.
yeah, I think it's a fact, and it's a hard thing too because I think it's comes down to money a lot of the time. We're a slave. We're addicted to
And
the
isn't that
source
funny that
of the
love of
money,
money is the root of all evil? I mean,
and
is it in a way that we do love money because we
but look at how
want
they're
to try
trying
to
to get
play
it.
this game?
Look at how they're trying to get it to the point that you can't have your own. Look at most modern societies with farm. You can't farm on your own land. You have to grow
Right. That's
grass.
what exactly.
So if
Exactly.
you had your own farm,
If
you
all
could
of us all
sustain
said, "Hey,
yourself.
let's just take a plot of the land and start making our own farm and we don't need to work for money. Let's, we're going to
You
live
have to
the
have that
Jesus way." The government will come in and
as
say, "No, you got to
farmland,
you got to pay taxes. You got to
as
make
industrial. Yeah, you have to have
you can't
industrial
do
land to
that."
do farmland. You can't just have your own crops and stuff at your own place.
And
And
they consider that like a cult. They'll try to make that sound like a
so
cult.
I think after some time it was to take us away from being able to sustain for ourselves to be addicted to the money system. So now we're hooked on the money system. We can't get off of it. We can't break free because we don't have our own way to sustain ourselves. We don't have that anymore.
Right.
And now that we don't have that, we have to have the love of money. That's all we know. Do you
Yeah,
grow
you,
do
you
you grow
start
your own
well,
stuff? I certainly can't. I don't have a place to do that. I kind of have to
you
be
know,
addicted to the system.
I gotta
Um,
be honest with you. You know, we always love to say it's funny because we'll do this. We'll use the word love, all right, the love of money. Now, when you're talking about love of money, you can easily say, I don't love money. Isn't it amazing? Because you'll use love in such the most powerful degree in that fashion. You know, when you're defending love of money, it's like super easy to be like, well, love, that means you put it first, you know? But
yeah,
you talk about your wife. You love your wife, but do you put her first? You know what I mean? It's like okay, so maybe that's what I'm trying to say is
mhm.
it's a lie to yourself. You know, you're lying to yourself. I think the reality is you do love money. You get that paycheck every week. You
You
can
feel
get what you
good
need to
when you get
get.
it when you get a little bump or
You can
you get
survive on that, and that's what I'm
a
saying.
little bit more.
It's it's slavery, and I'm
I
not trying to say that you need to gain,
I
independence.
I
And
I
I
think that the whole, the revelation thing that you're going to have the mark of the beast on your hand and on your head, I think that's already what we have. We're already marked. We don't think we are because we're waiting for a physical mark, but I think the fact is the money's on our hand and the money is on our mind all the time. It's on our hand because we exchange with our hand. It's on our mind. It's the 666, the sign of the beast. I think we've had it for such a long time. We think we don't, but we have to work with that. Because how often do people just do their own farming and just survive that way? And even if you did do that, are you able to sell your crops for some clothes? Are you able to trade all that? I only know a few people that really barter throughout their lives and just get all their stuff through bartering. I very few people.
but even in the beginning, Adam and Eve were naked. You don't even need clothes. Look, the fun of life would have been migrating around and stuff like that. The truth of the matter is, if you can't survive the world, you're not really needed to. You know, it's fine. You can go back in the circle of life and you can be with God again. You can do it again. It's like you can be infinite. It's not, it's not this. I don't know how to explain it. Like, you don't have to be so. We're so obsessed with, well, this is our only chance, and if we don't make something of it this time, like you're dead. You're dead. What does it matter? You know what? Here's a great one. Uh, they just talked about the COVID vaccine. You know what it can do? It can help reduce the risk of death.
Can it?
That's all they said. How can you not help reduce the risk of death?
If it's not a guarantee, I don't really.
They didn't even say due to COVID. They just said help reduce the risk of death.
Yeah,
That's it. You can't tell me that's not a marketing strategy from
because at
a
the
doctor level.
first time they were
I
saying it's
expect some
100%
damn
effective,
professionalism
and then
from the people who are making billions of dollars. You cannot help. There's no pill in the world that can help reduce the risk of death. Death happens to everyone. What you needed to help start doing is teaching people that it's everybody will die. Your mom will die. You will die. Your brother will die. I'm not trying to be, gory, but you need to accept that and stop holding this. Well, life is, you take what you take. You embrace life while you have it, and you take what you take, and you love God while you do it, and you embrace that God has given you this gift. There's not much more than that. And this idea that you need to take everything from others and act like you're doing some righteous thing because you're helping someone else in the terms of help. It's all so like, stop. You could have just
Mhm.
ate mangoes your entire life and survived. You didn't need to do any of that
Yeah,
and
you
make
could have
things
run
way
around
more.
on a deserted island eating mangoes and
I get the idea because you think like, well, look at back in the 1800s when there was lots of people who were starving because they couldn't find work and stuff like that. And, but again, that's because you started making cities everywhere and stuff like that. And there was no like natural, People couldn't really survive out in the farmlands anymore. People were starting to claim territories and all that. They were forced to work. It was like you couldn't really just say, "Oh, I'm going to plot myself here anymore." Even in the 1800s, somebody would have been like, "That's my land, mother," or get off it. So it's like I said, and that's what I mean. You get these immigrants coming in the masses and the masses, and I'm sure, in all honesty, I'd say at least 80+% of them are genuinely trying to just seek a better life, whether they have actually experienced cartel, and poor government control.
I'm sure that's a big part of what that all is.
Because they know what it's like. I'm sure they've had family members a lot. I mean, dude, it's not hard to have family lost by corrupt government.
Yeah.
And
the fact
also,
is
cartel and people moving in on government were making decisions for the whole country. And I get it why people want to come here and just be like, look, it's already established. I'm not a bad person. I'll come in and just abide by your rules. And, I don't want to, I'll even learn the language. I don't want problems. I just want to get away from having to fear my kid's going to, either A, get killed, or B, get involved. It's even like the worst. You almost rather your kid get killed than get put into that, and now wanting to kill other people and stuff like that, and being high on coke and selling it to other people and trying to get other kids involved. It's like that's the worst feeling so it's a bad life.
Yeah, because
over there. I get it why you want to come
especially
here. I get it 100%. And I think let them in, organize it. If you can't handle 100,000+ people at a time, you were fucking unprepared. We're fucking America. You should have been like now calling all citizens that have any immigration help. We need people processes. Get them down here. We're willing to pay $25 an hour. Let's get these people processed. I know you want to do right by these people. They're people.
And here's the thing, man. Yeah, I know.
What's wrong with everybody? You want to use them as bargaining chips?
Well, if people are flooding in here,
numbers. This isn't a business.
Yeah. But if people are flooding in here, we have to have a way to do things. And if some states are being like, we're 700
I'm all
plus,
about,
we're so over capacity. Can you help do this?
We're not over capacity.
If they say there's 700+ people that are coming across borders than were the year before,
produce more than. That's
many
because you keep
people
putting regulations on farmers and stuff like that they can't produce anything anymore. That's the whole point. You keep choking it and then making it like it's harder and harder, so you have to get your own your own.
All I can really say to this is that
not right.
There's
plenty of farmland. Look how big our country is. We only have like 7 billion people.
If we
ants can hold like 7 billion in like one little plot. Even if they were the same size as us, I guarantee you it'd just be no different than like one country. It's not hard to do.
Well, it's the same thing like what I say. There's little truth in everything. And if the fact is they feel they're over capacity because they don't have the manpower to do it, it's going to be the same thing as if you have a hydraulic system. If you have too much pressure on a certain area, there's a bleed valve. Once there's too much pressure, the bleed valve gets opened up, juice shoots out of it, and the system can stay within the pressure. If it's over pressurized,
and there's clearly messing everything up.
There's too many people coming over, then it means either one.
Nobody's coming up with solutions.
It means either one, the president is not addressing the situation, or two, the governor of the state either doesn't have the funds or doesn't understand how to address the situation. So you might want to say, well, it's that governor's fault. Well, or it's the president's fault. It's both their faults. They're not able They're not able to make things happen in the way it needs to happen, and they're just going blaming back and forth with each other without any serious things actually happening. Now, the real person that would actually fix something would be like, you know what?
Every single other governor for not being like, let's see what we can do.
And that's another thing too. If they see these other immigrants coming to these other places as being like, okay,
but they don't care about the issue. It's not an issue for them.
Yeah. Okay. You can't do it.
All the human lives, the most human lives situation is not an issue for them.
Yeah, but people
they want to worry about the future of climate control and possibly what's going to happen when all those people have to eat bugs because we don't have enough food. We'll have plenty of food if you just stop forcing everybody to have like certain rules.
We could honestly go back to eating mostly vegetation without having to eat bugs. There's so much food at the supermarket all the time. It's
Absolutely.
never running out of stock. We have an overabundance of vegetable food that it mostly gets thrown out all the time. And people are like, can't we use this? Nope, it's in the garbage. It's molding. We can't. There's so much extra vegetation food that people just kind of act like it doesn't exist, but it does exist because how often is your a supermarket not out of vegetable or fruit stock? Never. Never. Not Target,
No,
not
no,
basic food.
no. But the
They
truth is,
always have extra
the average
veg.
person's educated enough to be able to grow their own garden. You
And
give
that
enough plot of
too.
land
That
to
too,
grow
you
their own
could
food, but
easily
you
do
can't let
that
them do
yourself.
that. You can't let them do that. You can't let them just start being able to just sell what they have on the streets and stuff like that. That's not allowed. They need to,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. It's bull.
hmm
No,
And
you know
here's
the
the
thing
thing,
is,
like we're going back to like the whole slavery thing. Like what happened initially? Okay, so we came over, we wanted little parts of land and all that, and the Native Americans were like, we don't want to control the land, we just want to live on it. But then the Americans that were here were like, well, if we don't control the land, we might get attacked by this group or that group or something like that. And then they sent out the cavalry and pushed back the natives till they got most of what they wanted because they needed more resources for their thing versus trying to live off the land and being more sustainable like some of the Native Americans did. But the fact is, if you go back and forth and you're like, well, see, that's why it was the colonizers. If it wasn't the original English that came, it would have been the Spanish that would have done it because the
yeah,
Spanish went
yeah,
down to Mexico, or it would
yeah.
have been the French
Spanish
because the
system down in
French would
Mexico.
have done it, or it would have been the Portuguese because the Portuguese were coming over here. All those countries were coming over here to take up a piece of land, and if it wasn't one, it would have been another.
And you
So
better
it
believe,
doesn't
I mean,
matter. So it doesn't
even
matter
down in
who it
like
was. It would have
certain
been
South
one.
American countries,
And
they all look Japanese because they're freaking half Japanese.
and there
Like
were
there's
Japanese
like
people that
island.
went over to South America too. Yeah, that happened too. And what is China wants to take parts of Africa? If you don't claim the land, somebody will. This is historically fact for the longest time. The only time we were completely united was probably way back when we were all one giant Atlantis or Lemuria or whatever that was called
Yeah, that's what I
long
wonder if
ago, and it
maybe
was just one
Atlantis was
giant
when we were
empire.
all one
I
empire as
think it
Atlantis.
was one empire, and then once that land sank in the Atlantic Ocean, because that's where it was. That's where Herodotus, or yeah, I think he drew the map, or who else it was, maybe a different guy. But um, once it sank, everybody distributed, and everybody's like, well, we're living over here. We're not living with you anymore, and so we're not like a part of your rules. And then everything kind of splits up. Even the Tower of Babel talks about this, where they all split up. As soon as you have one massive fracture in a system and it splits up and everybody moves everywhere, they want their own society their way. I want my own society my way. War is inevitable unless you have the same language, unless
Yeah,
you
but
can
even
communicate with each
look,
other, unless you can
look
humanize the other side. And at that
look
point,
how
everybody
language
became
works. Look
dehumanized.
how
And
language works. I don't even mean to be this or that, but y'all know what I'm saying when I talk like that. Things can change like no big diggy. You can literally change whatever you want with words and stuff like that. So it's
Mhm.
amazing how if you keep doing that with 2 or 3 generations, how things can become completely a different language.
Yeah. And
It's
most of the
not.
language, if you look at it, it's words flipped back and forth.
That's what I mean.
The
It's
Vikings did
words
that
flip
with
back.
their language. They would write in a snake pattern back and forth, and once they snaked around, the snaking around was backwards lettering and a backwards words too. And then when it came back this way, it was put back to the normal way. So it depends on where you go. Some places, like the Viking language, the R is still the R that we have today, but some is a little bit different. The arrow is a T in the Viking runes.
I think the
Everything
thing,
was just slightly changed as soon as you move over to a new area. It's like, no, we're going to talk like this because, and I think it has to do with what foods you're eating
yeah,
in a new area. The foods you're eating in a new area will make you more nasally, less nasally, have you more of a
yeah,
higher
it's slight
voice, a
changes, but
smaller voice. I think when we move around and we eat these
yeah,
different
even
foods, we just,
different altitudes can maybe have a little bit different levels of like helium and hydrogen levels and
yes, yes.
oxygen. Yeah, no, it
So
makes
it's
sense.
so I'm just saying when we moved around and all that, but besides all that stuff, going back to the Native American stuff, yes, it wasn't the greatest thing. I'm not saying it was the best, that they were conquered and all that. Essentially, they were conquered and they were just kind of put into little areas like, okay, well, we kind of own this now because we're going to claim it. And you can have this section because we don't want to like kill you off and look really bad. And that's kind of what happened with that. That would have happened with either Spain, Portugal, it happened with England because we're the English colonies initially, or it would have happened with France. And because France just couldn't hold the territory, they sold the whole Louisiana Purchase to the United States later on. Because they were also at war with the English. So
why would you want to fight on a big front when you can just make money on territory? Okay, yeah, we don't even have. They barely even had stakes probably in the ground. Because it's like, all right, yeah, we'll sell it to you.
They weren't on France's side. France and England were having wars throughout the generations. And France was like, if the Americas...
At this point, France is more up north, and they were probably like, "There's so much endless land up here." Like, we got, I mean, they took over the whole area of like Montreal and Quebec. They had plenty of land to not really care at that time, thinking, "Yeah, you want some land down here where we don't even have people, whatever." Like, whatever, you got it. We're making money on it, sure.
So the thing is, as soon as what I think ended up happening is
money and less war trade sounds great,
When Atlantis sunk, the mind frame of what people had changed at the time. The people of Atlantis probably felt like they were all one giant community, and it could. And maybe there were skirmishes too. There probably were. There were wars back in the Akkadian time with Babylonian and stuff like that. They would fight each other, but maybe they had a different mind frame. Like, well, we're a part of this area, but to own the land is a whole different concept. And maybe in this area they thought that, but when Atlantis sunk, these people over in this other area were like, no, we got to like defend our territory because someone's going to try to kill us. And it made all this massive amount of war in Europe for the longest time. Although there was wars, there were skirmishes in Americas too. There were tribes fighting each other. Aztecs actually owned almost all America and South America at one point. And then they were killed off and fought back with this other tribe that starts with an L. I can't remember the name. But they fought back and they would fight each other. I mean, there were people saying, like, we should just give it back to Native Americans. They would scalp each other. Do we want to go back to getting our skin peeled off our head? And it was like some people might make a comment like, oh, that's a horrible thing to say. I mean, it's kind of the truth, though.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Like, what's horrible about it? I mean, that's the time period that you want to go back to. Or do you want to go back earlier when there was a peace? There wasn't.
There was never a perfect peace at any time.
There was never some perfect peace. Like, what time exactly?
Maybe
what time machine are you trying to invent yourself to get
Maybe Atlantis had some kind of peace time. We don't fully have full records. We only have clay tablets.
You want to go back when Genghis Khan ruled most of the area?
Guess what he did to win it? He had to rule by conquest. He was a duke. He attacked everything to rule it. I mean, people think we're going to go back to this peaceful time, but those warmongers, they're bad. It was always war. You're right, man. It was always war. It was always some new war happening because somebody wanted to rule the land because they felt like they come into this area. It's like, hey, you can't be here. This is my stuff. And the other person's like, hey, you don't own that. And it's like, yeah, I do. I've been here. I built my house, and you're eating all my vegetables, and you're eating all my food. Get out of here. You're taking my stuff. This is my stuff. I need this for myself. The communication broke. The communication broke down. We changed languages. We moved to different areas. We don't understand each other. If we would come to an understanding of each other, we'd have a better understanding. But we're so divided mentally.
Look, that it makes us. I one time watched this little clip, right, where they were talking about abortion. This is like during that whole time period. And the one person said some crazy statistic where he's like, I think he even said like 70%. It was so weird. But he's like 70% of people who grow up in like foster care or have like non normal parents, like non-heterosexual parents, like you could have like a mom, not saying they had to be gay or something like that, but you could have like just a mom and your dad died or something. Like you just didn't grow up with a mom and a dad growing up. They say like up to 70% or something like that end up having some bit of gender identity issues. I think I'm saying it as generous as I can. I think it was even probably more like
that would kind of make sense.
Of a statistic.
That would kind of make sense because you don't grow up with
the person rebutted on it is like, well, are you saying that they deserve to be aborted? like, like, and it was like that was the whole point. That was like stomp in the face of it. But it made me think like, well, are you also saying that it's not by birth, that something happens in situations that's creating this? If there's such a larger number of it happening to a certain concentrate of people that have
Mm-hmm.
gone through like, well, then it doesn't seem like it's by birth that this is happening. It seems like it's something that's being caused by situation.
Yep.
And again, I'm not making any light of the situation. I don't even have a problem with what people choose to do. It's completely up to you. I really don't care. But I think it's scientific to look at that. I think this is caused more than it is by birth.
Mm-hmm.
I think in reality, our minds very much are a blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
And if certain things happen to you, you get in this. But if it's causing you more depression and all that, and I'm not saying that maybe it's a it's the whole situation
Did you
behind
did
it
you see
that
the person in Belgium that got euthanized because they were depressed?
no.
Apparently, they can do that. I mean, just like so, they didn't go through all the treatment they wanted to. They just they were in a hostile situation before. They had a little PTSD, and then now they can't live anymore, and they want to get euthanized, and the government's like, oh sure, go ahead, just kills them off. There no other extra treatment done. Just oh, that's one less person we have to deal with. I mean, where are we going with our governments and societies? We're going to this extreme authoritarianism, or it's be silent, shut up, do as we say, or we'll censor you because you don't have any rights. This is the reason why America is really good. This is one thing that I mean, America now with their justice system, we have the right to defend ourselves in court. We have the right to have a fair trial. Now, I'm not saying there aren't a bunch of lawyer things and loopholes and all that, but I'm just saying, like, this is what we were given as a foundation. How many other countries have that? Where you can represent yourself in court, or you can
138.
be, 138.
I made that up, but it's probably close to that.
I don't know, but I'm just saying it's a nice feature of the system that we have. We have the ability with all these things to be able to defend ourselves, to have the freedom of speech. But that's the
I
whole
know.
thing.
There's a
We have
reason why
freedom
the
of
one and
speech, but
two
now
is
you're
like
trying to
freedom
tell
of
people to
speech, and
not
then
have freedom of speech. That's very not American of you. Maybe you should go and live in a place that's not America if you want to keep
well,
saying that kind of
I
stuff
think
because
I think
you're
that's
not being an
that's
American. So why are
see
you
that's
trying to defend Americans if you don't
but
want to
that's what
be
I'm
one?
saying.
Fucking
That's the
leave.
argument. That's
Get
the
up and
argumentative
leave.
state. That's the argumentative state of the whole thing is that it's a business's choice on what they should be able the right to do and all that, and it's your choice if you want to support the business. If YouTube wanted to censor a lot more stuff, maybe I wouldn't watch YouTube at all. And you start to say, well, okay, well, you're gonna not even know what's going on in the world and all that. And I guess it's like that was fine until you had like evil leaders coming in. You know what I mean? I guess
Hmm.
if you have like a nice set of weapons on you and a good stock of ammunition, you don't need to know what's going on in the world. If somebody comes at your door, last
Hmm.
thing you check, the law said that you have the right to defend yourself. And if they try to come in saying, we're here to take your guns, the law's changed. You can say, show me. Show me where they wrote over the Constitution.
And
Show
if they
me.
just pull out their gun and point it at you like they're gonna shoot
You have
you,
the
and
right. You have the right to
you're
shoot them.
like, you're gonna shoot me? Oh God, no! And then you pull the trigger, and it's like you try to
You
attack me on
have
my
that
own
right.
property.
You have tried to attack me on
This
my
is
own
what we just
property.
talked about the other time.
I
Jesus
and
said that it's no
the
greater
property that
love
I pay taxes
than for
for.
somebody to lay down their life to protect
Taxes.
their loved
You
ones.
can't. Right.
What?
You can't come in onto my property that I've paid the taxes for you. That you know what I mean? Like you can't keep acting like you're just this entity or business that's able to make decisions
Hmm.
on its own accord.
Yeah.
You're kind of locked into a system of laws where your decisions are based on really listening to the people and whatnot.
Yeah, because that's
And
another thing. People, this is the twisted reality we live in right now. People are trying to censor free speech and think they're Americans. People are trying to take away things from other people and think they're Americans. None of these things are American at all. People are trying to, like what you're just saying here. I'm
because it's
getting a brain
slavery.
fart, but they're trying to enslave you into the idea that, oh
They're
no, 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 no,
right. George
whatever they
Carlin was
say,
trying to tell
the
you
the
back
the
in the you're a
representatives,
slave. You
the
think you have the right of freedom, but you're a slave. You don't have
yeah,
freedom.
yeah, but they say, the representatives that are here, oh, we have to listen to them. No, they are a public servant, which means that they have to listen to us. But that's not what's happening. They're becoming a star. They're becoming some greater than life thing, to the point that, oh, we got to do what they say. No, they're there to be there for us. Why is everything twisted and turning around to the point that it's so convoluted and everybody's like, oh, that's the way it is? That is not the way things are
That's
supposed to
never the
be.
way it's been.
That's
It's
never the
never
way it was
been this
supposed to be,
way.
ever. It was
And that's
not
what I'm
supposed to
saying.
be this way. And
Like
then
you
people
guys,
are
and
jumping
I don't
into
even
it
understand.
full
Like
bore.
Joe Biden is literally trying to fight his former self on all the laws that he's acted like he's
Oh, we
like.
can't put a law mandating people get vaccines. You got to go and do it. You're attacking Americans if you don't. You're bioterrorists and stupid shit like that. I mean,
Yeah,
what did he say before he got in? I'm never taking Trump's vaccine. I will never do that. Even Kamala Harris was all that. And guess what? They pushed it hard, forced you to lose jobs, forced people to be just,
before
and
they
then
released
said,
the public,
"Hey, look at all the
before they
jobs
re,
I created." Yeah, because you
before they
got them
released the
all fired.
information, though, before they released the information, I mean, what kind of world is that? I don't even think before, when they mandated you to get like certain vaccines back in the day, that they didn't like you know what I mean?
It
Like, how
wasn't
are
a
you gonna do
forced
that?
mandate. It wasn't a. You didn't have to.
But
you,
how are you gonna like not have all the information out? I mean, just the whole thing is so stupid. It's such a ploy for money. It's so obviously a ploy for money.
did we
Uh,
become stupid somehow and then just go? How did this happen? Did we all just like lose our minds and then we're just like wondering like how it got here? I I don't know. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me with that. Just does not. All right, let me get Brad back in here. Oh, there you are. Here, I'm gonna leave and then come back in because it's gonna give me a timer again here. Da 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 da. Huzzah! Let's join back in. Oh my god, okay, getting there real good. There we go. All right, we're back in.
42. It's supposed to be at 12:52. What happens? Or was
Yeah,
it
it's a
before
little.
12:51? So, which is what I'm saying. A good slave won't know they're enslaved. A good slave will be strong enough that they can do the required work needed every day. The whole system of capitalism, and I know what you said, like, and I'm not trying to narc on it. I think it's the best form we got out here right now. But the
Mhm.
whole system of capitalism is clearly like a slave-ridden idea form. I mean, it's
Mhm.
what it is. You have to toil yourself every day.
Yeah.
And then what if you're super successful, or you no longer a slave because you have the freedom of, but you are a slave. You're a slave to the money now, because you're not going to just give everything to people. You're not going to be like, let me start over. I gave 47 million to everybody and now I have nothing again. And I gotta do it again.
Hmm.
Imagine if like a couple CEOs die because they all found out they were going to go to jail. So like 12 CEOs died. Everybody, nope, they were each worth like 2 billion.
Mhm.
Yeah, everybody suddenly gets they didn't have any kids because they're horrible monsters, so they didn't leave their
Hmm.
money to anybody. They got prenuptials, and now everybody just got Like $15,000 or something like that. It's like, whoa, where did this all come from?
Hmm.
That's a lot of money. 15,000, probably like 1,500.
What are we talking about now? You kind of lost me on
I'm
some of this.
talking. All right. So my idea is, and you can keep your businesses, right? If you own a business, you can pass that business on to somebody. So I'm sure that lots of people who have like good family would not have any cash, but it forces you to create businesses and create, like not stockpile cash. Basically, it forces you to create jobs or anything. You can't stockpile cash because if you
Hmm.
die, all cash assets that you own, all cash things that you own gets distributed amongst the American people equally.
It works. What do you know? All I can do
Oh,
is unplug it
oh,
and unplug
oh.
it.
I was gonna say like like up to like $100,000, like families can get like or like something like that, like or maybe it was like $1 million or something like that. I think I put the bar at 1 million. Like when if you have 1 million, more than 1 million, you can have 1 million in cash assets given to your children.
Hmm.
And I think you can even have like I would even say that you could have like if you have 5 children, you can give 1 million to each child, right? But past that, like it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
First off, because first off, this is what I'm saying. There's too many super spoiled rich kids that are inheriting everything. You know,
Hmm.
maybe the cash wouldn't even matter if you're getting assets that are valued more than 1 million in the general. Like you're void of the cash if you get assets valued more than 1 million right away.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, but they need wiggle room for spending or something like that. It's like, well, then that money should be put in through the company. You know, it's not, this shouldn't be your own personal money that you need money for the company.
Hmm.
That money should be in with the company.
I think that's
You
what
know what I mean?
gets. I think that's what gets some kids upset is like certain situations like that. They might be denied all of the inheritance of their parent, and that might make them really, really greedy. But I think the fact is, like, if you made a corporation or something like that, that should just, I don't know, that should turn over to the next person that knows what's going on and has a foot
You're
in the
saying you don't even
door.
think that the kids should get the company.
I don't think they should get the company for the
Maybe
simple
maybe you're
fact
right
is
then.
I mean, look at children that become emperors and kings at a childhood age when they didn't have a parent to raise them or they didn't have anybody to raise them in any way,
Yeah,
and
maybe you're right
sometimes they
then.
turn out to be tyrants and they're just children that are bad that have a lot of control over things become very, very wicked and evil. And I mean, look at King of Thrones or Game of Thrones with the one kid, the Joffrey kid, who ended up getting killed off because he was such an asshole. Like he
Yeah,
could
you
just
said
do
that.
whatever he wanted, and then he would just randomly kill people because you made fun of me. And it's just the same thing that happened in a Twilight episode where this one little kid was like a god, and if you did something wrong, you're going out to the cornfield. When you got the cornfield, you just disappear, or you might get turned into a puppet, and then you're like a little jack in a box with a head
But
popping
the
out.
problem,
It's just
but
like
the
you.
problem with my theory, my idea, like even if you're right, even if you say get rid of the company, so maybe like you can only basically when your parents die, you can only get $1 million. That's it to
Maybe you
start
get
whatever you
some,
want.
yeah, you get something to
But the
start somewhere, but you can't just be
problem
like
is
wealthy
other countries won't
beyond.
do this. So because other countries won't follow the same guideline, you'll get super hiked up prices and all that kind of stuff because people will try to compete against other countries,
See, see,
billions and
see. I think
billions.
I think that's what's the problem now is that these corporations have become so big. A part because of this is it's turned into an oligarchy in a sense, and it creates this dystopian type of system where like the youngest person that just inherits it and he's like, I don't fucking know what I'm doing here, but yet he's got all this billions of dollars and he can just do whatever he want. He can fire half the people that were working there waiting for a pension for so many years, or he could just go and pretty much anything he wants to do and just mess it up. It should be left to somebody else that's already been there for some years and knows what they're doing. Like let's say you worked at a place for such a long time and this guy's leaving
Yeah, but
and
it should
you're
be.
next up in charge. It's like, okay,
Well, that's
maybe
what I mean.
I'm
It should be like
I'm the
it
next.
should be appointed. Should be appointed
an
to you,
next
or you're
appointee for the company to be established. Because half the time, I think the fact is we give all this stuff to our children and our kids, and we're like, "Don't worry, just come and live with me. You take away
yeah.
any
Well,
freedom
there's
from
no,
them to actually
and
grow
there's
themselves.
look,
And then
if your
if
child is
everything
number
fell
two,
apart, they're going to be living
but
in living in poverty
if your child is
because they
number
don't.
two for the business, if you're owning a big business and your child is right behind you and they're number two, yeah, they could be the ones to inherit it. I'm not saying that it's not
Oh yeah,
possible
if it was
for your
like,
kid to,
but I don't
but
think. But
they,
here's the thing: I don't think
but
you should
Hunter
force it on
Biden
it.
should not get the,
Yeah,
everything Joe Biden left behind when he's
no,
doing his
no.
own things.
Look at him with his the weird shit he does. Like he's one of those kids.
10% for the big guy.
He's one of those kids. He's like one of those asshole kids that's just gonna be like, my dad's gonna give me everything. I can smoke crack all day. I can
More
go out with
Parmesan
all
cheese
these
than pretty
smoked
much anybody
Parmesan. I can
that you
do
know.
all these horrible things, and nobody's gonna care because he's gonna be the president. I can just get all this stuff, and it doesn't matter. This is the kind of stuff that makes America bad.
I know.
That's a prime example.
Imagine growing up
is
hearing your
Biden's
dad
son.
be like, "I'm gonna be president one day, and I can't have you fucking embarrass me." And he's
Yeah,
probably thinking like, "Fuck you, dad." Like,
I think a
yeah, my
fact
dad
is
will be
like,
president one day, and then
if
when
you're
his dad's finally president, he's like, "My dad's president. He's vice president." He's probably just touting that around. Like, he's vice president. He'll be
yeah,
president. He used to tell me when I was a kid, "I suck this line off my dick."
I I'm just saying like some of these kids growing up like there's no accountability. There's no
No,
he's going to be a moral representative for this company or anything like that. Not everybody's going to be a little different. I understand that. I totally get that. But if you raise the kid and he's like, I want to kind of follow in your footsteps, be like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Okay, here's what you do and this is what you do. But if he doesn't want to, you shouldn't force it upon him. But you got most of these oligarchs forcing it on their children. Their children don't want to do it. They don't care about it. Let the company go to hell. Everybody falls apart within this company system. This is where everything goes bad. It should be given over to somebody else that can take charge. And let's say they fail,
yeah, there
they
should be some
shouldn't
more
be bailed.
stipulations
They shouldn't be bailed out.
on
The company
all
should
this money.
fall to nothingness,
When
and
a poor
somebody else
person when a
rebuilds it
poor
that actually
person with a little bit
cares.
of money
Do you know
dies, the
what's going?
government wants to take every last penny they possibly can from that person before it goes to you, the predecessor of the family. But when a huge rich person has all this money and all that, it's like, oh, just pay your dues, and it's going to get all passed down to the next family member and all that. Yeah, sure. Even if it costs $1 million, it doesn't really matter to them,
Hmm.
and that shouldn't be right. It should be like your own life. You shouldn't just be able to ride your parents' coattails. But that's what I'm saying
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
Not just businesses. That's what I'm saying. Like all that cash should
yeah.
be like just. We should look at it when Bill Gates dies. People like I remember him. Dude, we all got $600. Like Bill Gates was. I mean, he made this possible. He made me able to get a PlayStation 5. You know,
That's
and it's like
yeah. That's a
it's
hard.
like, dude, he used to own Microsoft. Well, but he sold it.
Oh man, that
Whatever.
I don't think I could ever find the day where I'd be like, yeah, I actually kind of want to thank Bill Gates for something here. I don't know. I don't know if we'll get to that point, but um, you know,
You
I
just think about it. Like randomly, when Melinda Gates dies, everybody gets another like 600. It's like, whoa, sweet.
no, she's divorcing him, so she's not going to have that
Yeah,
platitude.
she no, she got half the money though.
Did she get
She's like
half his money?
she's like she's the richest woman in the world, richest woman in United States. Something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think the fact is like what I said earlier too is we're kind of a slave to the system in that sense because we're forced to not farm for ourselves. We're forced to not. I mean, because how many places can you live in a residential area and they want you to cut your grass? You might not want to, but you have to cut your grass. Can you plant and do other stuff? I don't know. We got some restrictions on there. We got a homeowners, not home. Well, I guess homeowners insurance kind of pays for some of that, but you can only do so much with your land because you're going to
Yeah,
offend your
there,
neighbor.
there's
Your
just
neighbor
community
will
policies
your
and
neighbor
stuff
will
like
be
that.
offended if you grow a
You can't have
it,
fences that are too large. You can't. There's lots of little
it's like this is
stipulations that
my
they can
land.
do.
This shouldn't be your like what. And plus the fact is, if you do it, what can they do? What could they? They're not paying your property taxes. They're not paying for any of that. Some people are like, well, property taxes are evil, and all these taxes are evil. If we didn't have any kind of tax on any kind of land or any kind of thing at all, the land comes down to you holding the land or somebody comes with a gun and takes it from you. But if you
Yeah.
have some kind of deed going back to the government, be like, nope, you got to deal with the
Well,
government
well,
because
but
I'm
this
paying
comes into
them. They're supposed to protect me
here.
to hold this land. That's where it all kind of came from because
But this comes to the
you don't
same
have any reason to
argument that I
hold the
said,
land. Anybody could take your
law and
land.
order. I
Yeah.
said that the Declaration of Independence doesn't, well, I guess it's more than the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights doesn't come after you and paper cut you when you break the rules of it. It's people who follow it. With
People follow
how do
the.
you, and that's why I said last time with the whole God existence, how can you have law without order? Law can't exist if there's not some kind of order to make it happen. And what's that order? That's
Yeah,
God.
that's why I had the problem with the whole evolution thing too, because I'm totally on board with that. We if we lived in like what I even talked to you just behind the scenes the other time is if we had a chaotic world that just came from nothingness, it would always be chaos. Things would be
Yeah.
appearing everywhere randomly. Well, holy shit! Where did you come from? I was your ancestor long ago, but I'm apparently right next to you right now. And you're like, yeah, you're my extra grandpa. What? How you? I don't know how I got there. I just can't. I just
Super
appeared.
convenient.
It
We
was
haven't
just
had another Big Bang happen
you
in the
know,
last, 13.8
ever.
billion years or something.
Yeah, no more big bangs and ever. So if random shit would happen, it would just randomly keep happening. So if law and order exists, where there is a creator and there is order to things, the Fibonacci sequence or what is it the thing that goes around in a circle that gets bigger and bigger and it's I forgot. I think it is part of the Fibonacci sequence, but how flowers even have order to them based upon their shapes and how they're built. There's order and law within this reality. So
Right.
if
Well,
that
that's
exists, then there's an intelligent creator that put those building blocks together to have that be.
but that's what I'm saying. It's
It,
all the other things that create the disorder. All of a sudden, one area didn't get light, so it changed its shape a little bit, and you get these slight imperfections, and that's what
Mhm.
makes life so crazy. And evolution happens. Oh, I need to change my color to this to get better. Evolution and all that is so it's like you have a combination of one kind of order of perfection, this order,
Mhm.
this perfect code, and then you have another of like jumbling things like things that factors
But I
basically.
think it comes down to what we eat, also a combination of other multi-organisms that are working within you, because you are a multi-organism type of system. Skin is one organ, eyes, ear, well, hearing is a different organ.
Well, you're
These
getting
the other things are different
I'm
organ.
getting.
But what I'm
Oh, you know
saying
what
is,
I'm gonna
but what
say.
I'm saying is, all the bacteria in your gut, there's different bacteria in your gut that are working with you to help you survive. You're multiple organisms working together to stay alive. We're multitudes of things, not just one thing. A lot of people think we're just, okay, maybe spiritually we're one thing, but we're multitudes of different things working together to make this body happen, to make me talk, to make me hear, to make me think, to make me see. All these things are working in conjunction together. If it was random chaos, I'd have an eyeball on my butt and my nose on my shoulder, and it'd be like, "Oh, that's the way you were born." I would just look goofy as hell, and so would you, and it would just be like, "Well, we're trying to work together, but it's a little bit chaotic over here. We just don't have things perfect." And yeah, sure, there's going to be some imperfections in systems because of other influences. Look at radiation. What happened with with the bombs are dropped? People started getting all kinds of weird things happening because of overdoses of radiation that changed things. I think what happened with the dinosaurs long ago is there was a major comet that hit, radiation hit everything and mutated them into different things, to slight mutations, a forced genetic mutation very rapidly. I think that's kind of what happened. Um, I kind of think that's kind of how that goes. But I mean, if we,
Speaking of organs, as we were talking about earlier,
okay, you were talking about the brain.
why? Well,
Yeah.
I can't understand why they consider the brain an organ. They keep saying it's a complex
because
organ.
it's a
And when
different. It's its own thing. It's
it
its own
doesn't
compartmentalized.
look or act anything like any of the other organs in your body. Every other organ is here. You know what I mean?
In
Like,
your stomach?
isn't it? Are you saying your skin's an organ?
That's what they say. The skin's an organ.
So like, okay,
Because if it's a
fine.
layer,
You can look at
I think the skin is more just
is,
a layering of defense
is what
mechanisms
I'm,
against
which is what
radiation.
I'm saying. Your skin shouldn't be classified as an organ either,
But I guess it could be. I don't
or
know what to say about that, but
your outer layer of flesh anyway. Which is what I'm
mhm.
saying. I just, I
I
can
mean
even understand.
it grows its own material, so I guess it in that sense it has to be because its skin is its own material that's different than uh, just right,
I just think that like
right.
we simplify this idea. We really don't know, that much about the brain, but you can get a heart transplant, but you can't get a brain transplant. So it's not like
Because it's
all organs
well, it's
work the
because
same.
this is where you're at. Everybody thinks you're all this thing. You're in here somewhere behind the eyes. The whole soul, everything is connected just to the brain. Why do they have halos as far as holy people where the light's coming from their brain, but not the body? The whole body's not
So
glowing. It's just the brain is glowing. It's because the soul resides within maybe an anchoring system to the brain or something spiritual. I kind of think it's possibly some other visible, it's some other kind of light
what
that we can't
what
see,
in the
like
soul
X-ray or gamma or some kind of spectrum
do you
of
do
energy
you
that we
think
can't
your
see. That
soul is tied to
eh,
your memories?
yeah, I think because I mean we're here right now,
Why do you
so
think that? I mean, I'm
because
just
I honestly, I mean, if we get into like really nitty gritty stuff here, we could say like, what is the purpose of this? There's no point, blah, blah, blah. I think there's a big purpose. I think it's a school of thought. This is a school of thought, and we're all here to learn something. And depending upon how we live it, we learn those lessons we've learned. And yeah, everybody's in a different situation. Everybody has
well,
different things. Some
what
have
if
it
your
harder than
soul
others, some don't.
hear me out, hear me out. What if your soul got to watch your life and it had no recollection of it? And that's its own judgment. Do you consider yourself worthy listening to your own life in the end of
Like I
it?
also
Like,
said before, I think you go where you want to go. The same thing with life is the same thing in the afterlife. You can choose to do this or you can choose to do that. You can go back to the source, be assimilated, or you can maybe, like what they say with the Egyptians, you could be a star. You could become something more. Maybe you become your own creator. You create something and boom, you made your own planet, solar system, and you can watch it. I don't know. It's hard to say. Everybody's got a different opinion on this, and maybe the fact is, maybe all of them have a little truth to them. I can't say 100%. There's no 100% positive proof in the pudding. This is absolutely this way. Everybody's got their own notion, their own idea, and
I
I'm
am
not
the
gonna say,
way, the truth, and the light.
yeah,
Life
I
and
do
light. Why
believe
not?
that. I do believe that, but you got other people, giving you other opinions and ideas as to things. And so it's like
I just think that it's like I said.
maybe it's where because if you believe in it, you go through the way, the truth, and the life, and you go there. But if you don't believe in it, you could go to this other place. I'm not saying that's the better place. Maybe that's not the better
I'm
place. But you have to. I think you have to go with like you have to go to where you feel the real truth is. And I think a lot of people understand this fundamentally. I think a lot of times people will tell you this is exactly how you got to do it to do that. And it's
I'm saying that we're asleep right now, more so ever that I just see this is more of the dream. And when you
mhm.
die, you more so ever wake up.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the question
Uh,
is, and that's what I'm saying, like your muscles don't necessarily have to wake up with you. You kind of, that's what I'm saying. You have to stretch yourself out. You have to be able to control your body.
well,
I think it's
what do
almost
you
like
have every night when you go to sleep? You have dreams. You're outside your body. You're living a new reality, a different experience. Is that heaven? A whole lot of different ideas of experiences and dreams and stuff. Is that what it is? Is that what it is to be in heaven? Is just to continually imagine different things, and you're in that reality? That's like a little experience of it, I think. But is it more than that? Is
But
that just
where
heaven
would God fit
spirit?
in that vision?
He's giving you all these ideas. He's giving you all this stuff to ponder upon, to think about, to go over in your mind.
Are
I
you
mean,
just saying that there is no real hell? I mean, you can't imagine yourself. Why would you imagine yourself in hell?
because you imagine yourself doing bad things, and therefore you do them, and then you go to hell. It
Well,
just
who sends you to hell? Why don't you just keep
you send
imagining
yourself.
good things?
This is the other thing too. A lot of the ancient texts and different places and say different texts from not just Christian stuff, from other things will say that you deliberately go there yourself. You walk into hell. You willingly walk in hell, knowing what you've done wrong in your past. So
And
the
you can't
fact
turn around.
is, so the fact is, you're doing these things deliberately in life, making it harder on yourself and putting yourself in a worse situation potentially in the future because you keep keeping that mind that train of mind, and you kind of walk yourself into a situation. Like if you here's the thing, if you keep telling yourself, oh, I'm gonna have a bad day, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a bad day, it's just such a horrible day, everything's gonna turn out bad, and you're like, ah, dang it, I stubbed my toe, because you weren't paying attention where you're going and you stubbed your toe into something. You were talking too much, you were angry, you hit somebody else in the car, and you're like, ah, geez, I knew this was gonna happen because you kept doing this, you built yourself up into the situation that you procured your own future. You gave yourself your own existence that led to the bad result that you put yourself into. If that's what you want, if that's what you subconsciously wanted, I think you subconsciously are thinking about it, and you're like, yeah, these bad things. You can change your reality. That's
Yeah,
why what we were talking
that's
before, like where you plant the seeds. Where you plant the seeds is how you grow.
I call it the odds. I say, what are the odds? You can ensure things through odds. Everything in life is just odds. I
Mhm.
mean, you always have an odd of a 0.0001% chance that a meteor is going to hit us or something like that we didn't even know.
Yeah.
You know, you always have the odds of like, fire and all this kind of stuff or aliens can always be like a certain. I would even assume that the odds of aliens might even be like, almost into like 0.002% or something, like higher, a higher number.
Mhm.
But everything in life has a really an odd to it. And you can kind of weigh into like, well, what are the odds of this happening? And what are the odds of that happening?
Mhm.
And you can just, I mean, that's that's life. That's literally life.
Yeah.
It's hard to see, but
I'd
it,
I'd
it's
I'd kind of agree on
it's
that too.
the thing that's interesting about life is like in um like in roulette, if the ball lands on black, you're gonna want to bet black again because that ball's gonna land on black again. And chances are to land on black another two or three more times in a row.
And some
And
people really
then
get angry with that too, because even when I'm playing some games with my friend Paul, he's like, "How can that happen again? It just happened two or three times." I'm like, "Dude, if it's a 50% chance, the coin could land on the heads 6 times in a row, because it's a
yeah,
50%
but
chance."
but it tends to seem to keep a pattern of sway. It's
It
very,
sways
very
a little bit,
strange.
but sometimes it'll come out like 6 times in a row, and then after that it changes over, and then it could come back a little bit, and then it'll go the other way for a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
while,
Well,
and then
after that, it'll kind of teeter totter, right? It becomes
mhm,
kind of random. But it seems like when it's like if it's been black twice, the best bet is to pick black again.
mhm.
It's on that kind of roll of
It,
it's gonna
yeah,
be
that's
there
kind
for
of
a
how
little bit.
a little bit. That's kind of how I played craps. I was pretty successful at that, but yeah. Besides that, like, I think, I think the fact is, trying to talk about the whole slavery system. I think we've come to a point where
It's gonna boot me.
when,
I don't know. It never gave me a timer, but it's coming up to 40 minutes again.
hmm, well, if you got to leave and come back, do so, I guess.
But it never gave us a timer this time.
Huh.
Should I do it? I mean, it's definitely been like, I think in 2 more minutes, it's been 40 minutes.
If it says you're going to be booted in a minute, you would probably want to go now because it won't
No,
give you any
no, no,
time.
no, 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 no. In 2 more minutes, my fault. In 2 more minutes, it'll tell me the warning for 10 more minutes. All
Oh,
right.
anywho, um, how do we?
But
How getting back to the whole point? How do we change this system here? How do we get it to the point that we're not slaves? Because even if we're not technically called slaves or technically thinking of ourselves as slaves, we feel like we've been put into this slave system, or maybe it's a slow, deliberate push towards that. Where the fact is you can't eat your own food willy nilly. You can't grow your own seeds because it's owned by somebody else. It's chemically modified so that you can't have your own seed. They own
Monsanto.
the seed. That's why that was done that way. It's not genetically better. It's so that they can sell it to you. And if you use it, you're using their brand because now they modified it. Now it's theirs. And this is where it comes in the Bible. Give to God what's God's, give to Caesar what's Caesar's. So basically means we can't own any of the food because we have to give it to them, right? Or do we have to break the rules and break the system now because they're trying to manipulate what Jesus said to make it work for them so that we stay in this sort of slave system? How do we change this going forward? To make new rules being like you can't you can't modify food because food is supposed to be for everybody. You can't modify that because it's not humanitarian. That's not helping people. That's just making you benefit off of that. I'm gonna wait for Brad to come back in because I think he's gonna join back in. All right, well you're back here. I can hear you, man. I don't know when your video feed's gonna start, but what do you think about that? What can we do to stave off this slight sadistic little push into pseudo slavery to the point that we have to use the monetary system versus just
It's just follow Jesus. I mean, it's really like the son. Jesus is the son of God, and you can either be the son of, you know what I mean? He's just a model. And that's what I mean.
but
It's
doesn't it mean
hard,
to be
but
a son is also you have to like instead of a servant you have to kind of be your own master in a sense. You have to grow into being your own master. You have to learn you love and you care for your family, but you don't when you get older you don't do everything that they say. It's the same thing in the Bible. Honor your parents doesn't mean obey every word they say. It just means honor and respect them. But when you get older you realize there's certain things that might not work now that maybe worked then. You know how everybody got all complaining about the whole system and like, oh no, you got to stay at this job for like 40 years and you're going to get the pension, and all that fell apart. And now that doesn't work anymore. Whereas the older boomers will think, no, you're doing something wrong because you're not staying with the job and you didn't stay there for so many years. They boot you. They kick you out. They don't care about you anymore. Right before you're about to get your pension, they'll kick your ass out.
yeah, those are the same people that are like, damn it, we almost had that guy working for me, so I didn't have to work anymore.
I'm just saying, this stuff happens. And the systems change. So can we stay with an old system that's broken? Maybe that's a part of what Jesus was saying. Can you put new wine in an old wineskin? You can't. You have a new system of things. You have to start making a new mold for the thing. I think that's what we have to do going forward. I think that's what Jesus was saying. There's going to be new things that we have to do, greater things than these. We're going to have to make new rules and standards
Yeah,
to
maybe it just means
work
like
a new
greater
system.
issues.
So maybe that's the fact. That's what we have to do. We have to actually look at it like that and go, maybe we have to change some things. Like you were saying, you were complaining about the capitalism thing being what it is and too many people are being corrupt. We have to change that somehow. But we already know what doesn't work. The communism thing always creates some kind of dictatorship where you're not with the high society. You're not the God tier system.
It's
You can
just
have everything stripped from you and you have no
the whole
rights
point is
because you're a
the whole
part of the
point is
state.
after you die, you shouldn't be able to still decide what to do with your stuff, even before you die. It's not intended to be mean. It's just there should be a great harmony to death. You shouldn't be so
Yeah,
obsessed
you
with
can only be
death.
buried with so much. It, you know, and that was the wrong thing that even my dad thought when he was younger. He who dies with the most toys wins. You didn't win nothing. You win a grave. That's what you get. You're in the grave and nobody remembers you anymore. That's the same thing I even said with like streaming and stuff. If I'm not streaming anymore, unless people are looking at old videos of something, like I'm just going to be in the archive section. People might come by and be like, "Oh, this person was a great person," or "This person did this great thing," or something like that.
Right.
And that then they'll be like, "Oh, hey, I got something out of this. That's great." But other than that, it's up to the next generation. It's up to the next person to push forward the next message to help out other people. It's up to that. And at that point,
What message
I'm
is
just
what they'll
saying,
say.
like, once I'm gone, my journey's done. I've done as much as I could. So it's like you gotta do what you can while you can. But once you're gone,
That's
it's
what I'm
like
saying.
that's
The
all you
money
really could
should
do.
the
And
money
then
and all the
that
assets
should
shouldn't
be,
go
yeah,
just to their
exactly.
children. It should be like giving back to the world. We shouldn't be like holding death to be, because then that's just like the whole, that's what I mean. Just like all these ideas, like the son killed the mom because then they can get all this extra money and all that kind of stuff. It's
Hmm.
like that. What if you just made it where that didn't happen? You know what I mean? I guess
Yeah,
that probably would still happen because I'm talking from like rich people, like over $1 million. I
yeah.
think that
It's
a mom who leaves her son like $100,000 should be allowed to do that, or their dad leaves their son. You know, even as I mean, even like it was like, you know, $200,000, $300,000 or something like that. Like
mm,
they should be allowed to do that. That's not enough to start, taking over businesses and making changes and things.
yeah.
It's just enough to be able to start a business and get some capital. Again, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like no bank can exist. Bank, like you said, businesses will still exist and the owners can change. It's
But
not like
that's what I think the
the bank can be
corporatism
worth
thing
a lot
is.
more money.
I think the corporation should automatically change hands to somebody else, not a private entity that can't be sued and an invisible, futuristic,
Or just a
everlasting
group a
thing.
group of like 11 people that run this whole board and stuff like that. It's just that, it becomes so weird. They're all making tons of money and they're all like
Yeah.
plotting together on how they
I
can.
wish I had I have to think about it more, but I think we're coming up to what the problem is in a sense, but like the fix for it, we have to work on. I'm coming down to like less than 4 minutes left for before I got to get booted. Do you want to call it here?
Yeah, it's
And
fine. I'm kind of getting the bubble guts anyway.
Yeah, I don't know how we. I mean, it's. I think the fact is we have to start putting real laws into play that actually protect the people that want to. I mean, we're still partaking in the governmental society, but we should have some options to be able to survive without 100%, government leering over us and forcing us to do this and do that. I think we need something better than what we've got right now, and I think there's got to be some laws
That's
we
what
got
I
to put
mean.
in
The
place.
government, look, the government wants to try to be all this control, or whoever, the World Economic Forum, if you want to get into the whole conspiracy thing. But here's the thing: a lot of these people were more self-aware than you think. We're not slaves, and
Hmm.
even if we're kind of following that slave mentality, we're not good slaves. I guess, we're not these efficient slaves. You got the younger generation wanting to silent quit. You got the older generation saying like, bring it on. Like I'm stockpiling my guns and ammo. You got the mid generation,
I think the fact
activists.
is like we're in the ripe time now for change. The whole last age ended, and with it, all of the brick corporations of yore, and it's just going to be something new now. And I think everybody's seeing the writing on the wall, which I've been saying. And after I said it like a couple weeks ago, I've heard everybody else say the same terminology. They're seeing the writing on the wall, and I think that's where we're at. We're just gonna see. It's gonna have to be changes. They're gonna have to work with us, or it's might be worse than that. And hopefully, it's not worse than that. The best time we can really make things happen where it actually works for us as a benefit is if we stand up and we give out our voices. If we sit back and we
Yeah.
just go, somebody else is going to do it, we're going to live the Homer lifestyle and be simps because we'll be the Simpsons. Can't somebody else do it? We shouldn't do that for our future, and we shouldn't let that guide our future into a crappy dystopian setting.